Okay, it's April 29th. And about 3 weeks ago, which is probably around the 8th or 9th of April, I started an evaluation of the Apple AirPods Pro as a hearing aid alternative to, I have one hearing aid in this ear. I don't have one here. To my hearing aid. And I wanted to do this because I wanted to be able to tell people my opinion based on experience of using the Apple AirPods Pro, predominantly as a hearing aid. So I did this review. I did an unboxing. I wish I would have captured the video of the unboxing, but I lost that. I did the hearing test. I went completely through the hearing test, and even though the video is a little fuzzy, I recorded that and put that on YouTube. I also went through the entire settings of the Apple AirPods Pro on my iPhone and discussed all the different areas of the settings and maybe some ideas that you may want to consider if you want to use these as well. And then I wore them for probably about 3 or 4 days. Close to 4 days, on and off, and I'll explain that in a minute, so that I could do two things. Number one, fulfill the requirement as best I could that both Apple says and other hearing aid manufacturers say, and that is you have to use them for an extended amount of time for you to get used to them, and in Apple's case, for the Apple adaptive noise cancellation and features of the hearing aids, for them to work well, for it to be adjusted and work well for you in your environment. So I did that. And now I'm ready to share with you my pros and my cons, and then my final remarks about the Apple AirPods Pro as a hearing aid alternative to a regular hearing aid. You ready? So here's the pros. They are great devices. It's an Apple device. Apple does not screw around when they make devices. The AirPods Pros are very well built. They took a beating when I dropped them. They have 3 different or maybe 4 different size adapters for your ears. So I was able to find the right fit for my ears. They are really a great device. The interface, the software associated with it is really top notch, exactly what I would expect from Apple. Number 2, as I referred to earlier, they fit well in my ears. I was able, again, to find the right little booty, and they were fairly comfortable, quite clear they're in there, unlike my hearing aid, which is very unnoticeable, but it worked really, really good and fit in my ears. As far as listening to audio, such as podcasts and music and maybe even telephone calls, listening to Audible, etc., absolutely a fantastic appliance. Absolutely love the clarity. I love the crispness of the audio. Really top-notch AirPods. Now, the hearing aid test. The Apple AirPods Pro, if you're going to use them as a hearing aid, has a hearing aid test built into them. I went through the hearing aid test. Very good test. It was aligned very much with the hearing aid test that I took with my audiologist. And furthermore, the results of the Apple AirPods Pro hearing aid test also aligned with the results that I got from my audiologist. So kudos to Apple for developing a really good and integrating a really good hearing aid test into the product. My last big pro, noise cancellation. Powerful noise cancellation. There's 4 different settings for noise cancellation. Full noise cancellation, turn it off. There's a transparent mode. There's a little bit noise cancellation. And then there's an active mode that adjusts based on your environment. Kudos again to Apple for really powerful noise cancellation features. Top notch. Now here's some of my cons. The battery only lasts 6 hours. Now in real life, my hearing aid lasts all day long. I've never had it die on me. And in real life, I can't say to people, time out, I've got to charge up my hearing aid. And the fact that the AirPods Pro only last 6 hours was a problem for me. I had to take them out, put them in the case. By the way, they charge pretty quickly, but I had to put them in the case, and then I had to put my other hearing aid on so I can continue with life. Battery problem? That's a problem. The transition between listening to music or other audio and then switching over to hearing aid was not so smooth. It was a little kludgy. And one of the problems I had is it would just lower the volume. I was listening to Audible or a podcast. It would lower the volume of that input so that I could hear the other person talking. And that didn't work as well for me. In real life, I would have picked up my cell phone and hit the pause button, which I would have done anyway. So my point is that, as it was trying to transition, I kind of wish that if I would have been able to say pause, maybe I needed to test Siri more to say Siri pause, or use the button more to pause it so that I could have the conversation with the other person. So maybe in fairness to Apple, I needed to do some more research with that. But it was a little tedious at first for me to get used to the transition between listening to music and having a conversation with someone. So let's talk about the noise cancellation feature. If I had it on full noise cancellation, it did a pretty good job of trying to drown out all the noise around me. And typically I would only have that on if I was listening again to Audible or podcasts or something like that. Now there's a active noise cancellation, then that would drown out the noise around me until I started a conversation with the person. But the transitions between noise cancellation, active noise cancellation, and even transparent mode, which seemed to create a buzz in my ear, that really was tedious for me to get used to. And I never really got used to what is the right mode for noise cancellation for me when I'm trying to use them as hearing aids and not specifically as an audio input for podcasts. So powerful noise cancellation features, but finding the right setup for me, I never could get that in the 3 or 4 days I was using it. And it really became a problem. Maybe I should have tried longer, but I didn't want to keep trying so much because of some of the other issues I had. Here's another big issue I had with using the Apple AirPods Pro as a hearing aid. And that is, in real life, I don't sit all day long. In real life, I walk around. In real life, I bend over and pick stuff up. In real life, I'm out mowing the grass, or I'm out working, and I'm bending over to pick stuff up. I was actually working on my deck, and even though I changed the little boots and got them a little more snug, the AirPods Pros kept falling out of my ears. In real life, that's a problem. I can't live a comfortable life if I'm always worried about my Apple AirPods Pros falling out of my ears, which again happened numerous times, even though I switched the little booties and tried to get an even snugger and still comfortable fitting. Here's one last con that I have that I think is important to understand. And that is, the hearing aid market is focused on older, for the most part, older adults, senior citizens. And many of these people today, 2025, they're not as technically savvy as others are. I'm blessed that I'm somewhat technically savvy and I'm able to figure stuff out, but many senior citizens who need or want hearing aids aren't. I think that some of these folks would struggle to be able to be able to connect their Apple AirPods Pros to their iPhone, to be able to go through the hearing test, which, by the way, for me, I had a little bit of a challenge doing it because my AirPod Pros wanted to connect with my MacBook, and I thought they were connecting to my iPhone. That was a mistake on my part, but others of my generation would have struggled even more than I did because of that. And then beyond the hearing test, which once I got into it, it was easy to do. But the next big thing is that the Apple AirPods Pros has a pretty sophisticated settings menu. There's a lot of options on there that you have to A, make a decision about, B, evaluate or experiment with, so that you can make the best choices for you. Now today, and for the most part, in the standard, traditional hearing aid market, a senior would go to an audiologist or a hearing center, and the people there would do all that work for them. They would set it all up. They would guide them through the tests. They would configure their hearing aid or change the settings as needed to make it work for them. Now, is there a resource out there who could help these seniors with their Apple AirPods Pros? Maybe I haven't discovered that, and actually haven't done a lot of research to find that, but they would need that resource. Now, even if there was a resource out there to help them set their Apple AirPods Pro up, there's normal operating uses of the Apple AirPods Pros that you need to get comfortable doing. Example, if you're listening to a podcast or music on your cell phone, you're going to need to know how to double click or go to the menu and turn on full noise cancellation. But then when you get done listening to a podcast or music or whatever, when you get in real life, engaging with humans, you're going to want to switch it either to active noise cancellation, transparent, which I wasn't a big fan of, or turn it off. Now, this sounds simple, and it is for many of us. But for many of us, it's not that simple. So my point is, I think that the functionality of the Apple AirPods Pros is such that it may be more than the average senior citizen could easily handle. And thus, I think that's a market that today would not align with this product today, based on the way the Apple AirPods Pros are set up. Now, here's my final remarks. I think Apple has done a fabulous job moving into this market. I do not think they have gotten to where they need to be to create a device that will replace the typical hearing aid that most of us older folks wear. Again, I'll repeat, I don't think they are there yet. What I'm hoping is that Apple continues to invest in this market, continues to improve the product, and make it more of a viable alternative. Because if they do, I promise you, I will go back and try it again. But today, I do not believe for me, and I would wager for most people my age and even older, I don't believe the Apple AirPods Pro is a worthwhile alternative to the typical hearing aid. Now, again, thank you, Apple, for doing this. Thank you again. If you continue to invest in this offering, I hope you do. And I look forward to seeing version 3 or version 4. I hope this review, as a result of my experiences, is helpful for you.